Warning, this content may be disturbing to some audiences. Subscribe, if you dare.
Too late, the damage was done. No one looked at me the same. Hey everybody, welcome to ANECDOSED. People ask Reddit. People who are falsely accused of sexual abuse. How did the accusation impacted your life?
Number 1.
I was accused of rape right at the end of college. It was a very public event. Shockwaves were sent through my hometown and headlines reached national newspapers. My name was never printed or anything, but of course people talk. As you can imagine, it's a pretty terrible experience. It was just chaos, incredible amounts of anxiety, stress and trauma. And so I was scared to death my friends, family, or anyone at all would actually believe I raped this girl. I had no idea how to act, and mostly I was so traumatized I didn't really function too well socially. I was so broken down psychologically, and would freak out over whether or not people would actually think I raped this girl or not. I would obsess over who wished me happy birthday and not, and try to map out if they were doing it to be nice, what the opinions of their social circle was likely to be, and I would pay attention to who deleted me on Facebook. The first year was the worst, as I moved to a new city and isolated myself. I wish people reached out more, as I never did to anyone myself. But I think most of my friends were young and in general people were kind of shocked by the whole thing. It brings me to tears just thinking about my old friends, and I still struggle to forgive my family for not supporting me better. This is now 7 years ago. The whole situation is just a death spiral, to be honest. Nobody wins. A year after the accusation, the girl sent me a message, saying she knew it was wrong, she made a mistake, she was in a horrible life situation and that she was sorry. My case was dropped after a while, of course. It's funny because I could tell a real difference in how my family acted towards me after that, but well, I was too traumatized, and I just tend to withdraw, which I have done more and more for the last 7 years. LOL. You won't believe how much I wish to just turn back the time so I could get my life back. Sadly, this is reality.
Number 2.
Friend of mine, British guy who had been in the US since he was about 9, was accused by a child at the daycare he worked at. He was about 23 at the time, in college. It was a good paying gig and his mom had worked there for a decade. He absolutely loved it. He was an artist and sometimes drew pics of the kids at play and gave them to the parents at the end of the day. One girl, maybe 6 to 7, fairly new to the area, told her mother he drew other pics too, of kids dead and doing strange things to each other and to adults. Bam, of course, he's in the police precinct and suspended from work. Multiple aggressive interrogations. He's being followed. His home is searched. They find nothing. Only after he had been through all that did the mother tell the cops the little girl had made similar accusations at another daycare in another town, with no evidence found. In the end he was exonerated, never charged, but it killed his love for the job. People didn't look at him the same, the parents asked him not to draw the kids anymore. He quit soon after, and soon after that moved back to Britain even though his entire close family still lives in America. It's been 20 years now and he's got a great life, constable, wife and 3 happy kids, but I often wonder how his life, and by association mine, this man is like a brother to me, would be different if that girl hadn't made that accusation. He was going to school to be an English professor. Also, WTF was going on in that poor kid's life.
Number 3.
I worked in a daycare with my wife, to see if it was something I liked. I enjoyed it but about 3 months and they put me to cover in the room that was for the 2 to 3 year olds. At one point I'm changing one of the girls' nappies alongside another member of staff doing the same thing. The little girl whose nappy I'm changing suddenly smiles and says something along the lines of "that feels nice when you touch me" there as I was wiping her ass. The member of staff looks over, sees that I'm only wiping her ass and says, "Man, that's not something you want said in public." From then on, I noticed people giving me weird looks, sometimes just for 1/100th of a second when I told them I worked in a nursery with 2-year-olds. I don't know if it was me projecting my paranoia, or if they thought there was something wrong with me for doing so, but ultimately the outcome was the same and I just kept thinking over and over again, what if that little girl or any kid said something like that to their parents or anyone else, and I would have ended up like your friend or worse. I left 3 weeks after the nappy change incident and told the boss what had happened, and why it had led to me leaving. Thankfully I had built up a great relationship with the other boss and other staff, so they didn't suspect me of anything and truly saw my dilemma, but it totally killed my want to work with little kids.
Number 4.
I had a similar terrifying issue that was all a true misunderstanding. I was with a pair of friends who were a couple and wanted to introduce me to a girl I knew about but hadn't really met, who we will call B. So the introduction goes well, we all go back to her place to use the pool and drink. My female friend is giving me great advice on how to talk to B. Well, the day turns to night and we are all pretty buzzed. Things turn frisky. My couple friends disappear and so do B and I. We go into her tiny 3 feet by 3 feet stand-up shower and start to kiss and touch and have a good time. Only, she is way drunker than I realize and she half sits half falls on her ass in a weird Indian-style seating position. So not realizing, I try to help her up and she just starts tugging my dong like she's starting a cold lawn mower. At this point I'm catching on that she's too drunk and I'm just trying to stand her up so we can get out of the shower. She's saying no, as in trying to pick her up, saying she wants to bang on the floor. Again. 3 feet by maybe 3 feet, so that's not happening. So I'm saying and trying to pick her up, we stand up and she's getting more and more insistent, saying no, let's bang on the floor. Of course. All my friends over here is no. My male buddy opens the bathroom door, and Charles Bronson's me out of the shower. B is still just chanting no at this point, and I'm realizing how this looks despite the truth that I'm trying to get her up and out of her shower at 1 a.m. The truly terrifying thing is B and I hung out a few more times, even legitimately bang sober. When we decided we weren't feeling it anymore, we got into a fight and she brought up the time I tried to rape her. She's the exact type of girl to go off on a pill bender and make some crazy accusations, so I was really truly afraid for a few weeks.
Number 5.
Not physical abuse, but I was accused of sexually harassing a neighbor over the phone. Cops called my parents saying they traced a phone call to my house where a young male verbally harassed, of a sexual nature, a mom that lived down the street. This was the 80s. I'm surprised they told my parents who the victim was, but they did. So I claim innocence because I didn't do it. They believed me, but I was really upset because there was probably lingering doubt. I kept thinking about it and it turns out the day and time it happened I had the perfect alibi. I was at the movies with my dad seeing No Escape starring Ray Liotta. I don't know if it ever got back to the neighbor, she probably still thinks it is me. Want to know the crazy part? It was her son. He came over and hung out with my sister and he called his mom from our phone. From that point on we avoided them. Didn't want any more drama. Eat shit, Brian. You're a terrible person. I'm also convinced he stole my Nintendo and all of its games.
Number 6.
This past school year I was accused of it by a now old friend's girlfriend. The entire friend group believed her and left me behind. Had to go through a 3-month-long process of telling our sides of the stories, turning in evidence, and eventually going to a hearing board. The board unanimously decided on me not being guilty. I was asked to leave the student organizations I was in because people heard the rumor. Most people on campus don't look at me or talk to me anymore, and there's just been a lot of emotional/mental stress. The hearing ended around 6 months ago, but I still feel the effects as I don't want to really be as social, don't have much motivation, and am legitimately terrified of going back to school. I still have a few good friends who stuck by and my family has been super supportive and always believed me, but I would be lying if I said it hasn't messed with how I perceive myself, how often I want to be in public, and my overall happiness.
Number 7.
I was accused of rape by my best friend's girlfriend, who came to visit me at university after she had an argument with him. She tried to sleep with me, but I refused. She went back to our hometown and told everyone I'd raped her. I was threatened with violence on multiple occasions. Many of my friends stopped talking to me. I was verbally abused and called a rapist on many occasions. All this even though I was never even arrested. I was very lucky. This happened before the rise of social media, or I would probably have been unable to finish university and certainly wouldn't have a career. It sticks. Like glue. There are still people in my hometown years later who openly say I'm a rapist because everyone knows most rapists get away with it.
Number 8.
When I was 23 I was working as the director of a summer camp and youth programming for a large organization. I hired teenagers as staff for the summer and worked with the same teens, 15 to 17-year-olds, during the year with their youth programs. Knowing I was a young man working with mostly girls, I was aware, and I never, ever met with anyone alone. My office door was always open, at all times. I was engaged, life was good. One day I showed up to work and there was a cop, a father, and my boss and his boss all waiting for me. They bring me into a closed office and tell me Mary, name made up, told some of her friends that her and I had sex in a closet. I sat there in utter shock and said, "Is this a joke?" After a moment I realized it wasn't. So, I said, "That accusation is 100% false, I would never do anything of the sort." I was then told that I would be on paid leave. I protested and said, "If you do this, everyone will think it's true." They did. This was on a Thursday. I met with a lawyer and was getting ready to sue the organization and the family of the girl. Friday morning I got a call. Mary confessed she made the entire thing up and she wanted to meet to apologize. Too late, the damage was done. No one looked at me the same. There was always that tiny nugget of doubt. Worst part is, my fiancée at the time also had a problem. She never said it, but I could tell she felt there must have been something inappropriate with the way I was or something. We broke up, the wedding called off. My only saving grace was this was before social media, thank God. I sent them a scathing letter, but word traveled fast and I was no longer hireable within the greater organization. I moved to a different city, this was 20 years ago. It really bothers me, to this day I still get really upset wondering how much different my life would have been if this girl didn't make up a lie, and if she hadn't told the truth so quickly. In the end, it always comes down to one person's word versus another, but it seems society is always skewed to guilty until proven innocent, and then even then, not really innocent. There should be a much harsher penalty for false accusations.
Make sure to share your personal story in the comments below and have the opportunity to be featured in a future video. Also, if you like these topics, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to continue seeing more content like this every day. See you next time.